Possibly you will fault my decision to make this video for the Seattle office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation as a basis for assigning a special agent, request that they assign a special agent for the purposes of verification in my appeal to humanity for review of the case of Mackenzie Shirilla. Because I'm going to be dealing with some matters that are on the remoter edge of evidentiary concerns. But I think after I finish, you may see the sense of my decision to do this. The theme of this tape is an impromptu one, but you'll see how ingrained some of the issues are by the immediate recall I have of them and issues involved. Remember, I have Parkinson's, which induces things like short-term memory loss, and even has the potential to precipitate dementia, sort of like the Mission Impossible tape that self-destructs in 5 seconds. Accordingly, I want to make clear that inaction can be a form of lying. And I want to focus on this point because some of the concerns I would like verified pertain to Federal Bureau of Investigation's long inaction. And I want the check put by them, and if necessary, duplicated by them on them. One example of this is the idea that first names have no relevance or meaning. There was a Jekyll Island club, you can research yourself and look it up, which was a first names only club. It was based on the people who were inside knowing who was visiting and concerned in this elite of elite clubs. But sometimes names have reason to be protected. For example, if somebody comes along who's a nicely spirited newspaper boy and his name happens to be Adolf, you know that he's going to bear the brunt of some jokes that are cruel, and you don't want that to happen. So you point out that he has nothing whatsoever to do with the most prominent namesake in the arc of strongmen. The Grogan Society, of course, will find a little boy who's tough and mean and aggressive and call him Jimmy and say, that's the enemy within. What's the problem now? Well, for one thing, the men who attacked me in 1973 were named Ronnie and Casper. Very few people outside of a sort of inner sanctum knew that Ronald Reagan and Caspar Weinberger would be working together. And the rationalist from the University of Pittsburgh comes along and says, you can't make a word association just based on first names. Well, the truth is rather obvious that there's a problem with two men named Ronnie and Casper brutally attacking and torturing a little boy named Jimmy C. There's something wrong there. Something strange about that. To make it even worse, the boy Ronnie was last name Zinsky. Let me tell you something about this. Holocaust survivor community who assigned this attack for a brutal Attica State Prison warden who was working with organized crime gangs in the city of Pittsburgh through the Ohio Department of Corrections, where Mackenzie Shirilla is held prisoner of war in a hybrid case. famous Holocaust survivors have included men and women who've noted a sort of trauma, a sort of induced freezing that comes from a result of hearing the tapping of heels. In fact, Ian Watmaker made it a point to take me out to show me where he got cleats on a little alley in Shadyside, where the Gurdjieff Call bookstore was. The clap tap tapping of cleats can induce a traumatized kind of freeze up. Zzz, 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 that sound was used to draw a direct parallel in the script known as the Texas School Book, that explains their mystical reasons why they killed Martin Luther King and JFK, who they refer to not so ironically as John Pendleton Kennedy. To mystify. Inaction on this evaluation is not only a cardinal error, it is a lie. When you look at the documents written by Gail Burston showing a precisely measured hallucinogenic poison made by a psychiatric warden of the prison system in Ohio, New York, and Pennsylvania. You're looking at a Xerox document that the FBI must verify came from Gail Burston, who they must verify I knew, who they must verify is her handwriting, who they must verify is authentic. They must. They must verify the handwritten letter that I wrote that shows the child psychology that the recipe bakers made, that proves that Mackenzie Sorella was a victim of the same device, formula, measurement, planning. She's a victim of a poison crime. I'm sorry that there were other victims, but they should be after the person who committed the crime, not the victim. When you're dealing with hybrid crime, the things that you have to look into that are probably dead ends. There are things that Stephen King would think up. They're not mystical. They're like supernatural things that may or may not be involved. Like the girl over here whose little Svengali system of sympathy appropriations lost her brothers in a automobile crash accident very recently. They wanted my Kennedy postcard. Thou shalt not have property. Thou shalt pretend you're not trying to steal through hypnography. And she's a wonderful girl, and he was a wonderful man, and I doubt that any intelligent person would follow through on anything other than questioning me psychiatrically for bringing it up. And I don't blame them. I'm not trying to say it's necessarily related. But when you're dealing with hybrid crime, especially from a despicable, taunting lampoon like the University of Pittsburgh Legal Society, who did this with Glenn McKenzie, Peter Gabriel, Roger Waters, Yoko Ono, and Martin Edelman, whose history of poison is insane. Let's just say the wisest thing to do is to steady yourself. Try to be patient and endure it. The sight of that poor girl being put through by the same methods, by the same actors, a process that destroyed my life. It's unbearable. I'm just trying to call the police.